page 361. Please turn off mute your mics. So we're on page 361. The Maamar is HaHalilah Hashem B'chayai, a pasuk in Tehillim that was said in conjunction with the Suda Seidah, the Suda, and following Yud Beis Tammuz in 1940, giving thanks to Hashem for sparing the life of the Rebbe. And in this Maamar, he says that al pi Chasidus, al pi Kabbalah, it says HaHalilah Hashem B'chayai. David HaMelech says, I will praise Hashem with my life, and I will sing to Hashem with Oidi, my might. And he says that Chayai refers to the Neshama, and Oidi refers to the Guf. And why is the Guf body called Oidi? Because Oidi also has the meaning, Oid, something else, some other thing, implying it's not the Ikar. It's not the main thing, it's only ancillary, it's tafel. So if you compare the soul, the neshama, to the guf, the neshama is hikr, the guf is tafel. And then the Rebbe questions, why does David HaMelech, if this is the interpretation, then why does it say, HaHalilah Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei? Why is the name of God of Yud Kei Vav Kei associated with Chayai? And Azamre Lelekai B'yoidi. And why is the name Elokim associated with the Guf? That's his question. And to answer that, he brings a concept in Kabbalah known as Koyres and Kalim, the lights and the vessels, the energies, and the receptacle for the energies. And he says that the name Yud Kei Vav Kei is the source for the energies, and the name of Elokim is the source for the vessels. So that's in Kabbalistic terms, and then he turns it over to Avodah, how this applies in service of Hashem in daily life. And he begins by explaining that there's two activities, two Avodas. One is called Avodas HaGuf, and one's called Avodas HaNeshama. And yesterday we learned about Avodas HaGuf. Now a person needs to should meditate and reflect on the way he relates to Hashem, and who is he really in his real deep core essence, and realizing that he's distant from Hashem, and that Gashmius is more important to him than Ruchnius, and the proof is that he has Chumrius, he has corporeality, and when he will become frustrated with his own situation and shed tears to annul the Chumrius and refine the Gashmius, this is the Avodah called Avodas HaGuf. This is what we learned yesterday. And now we'll go into the Maamar. It's 5 lines from the bottom, the 2 last words, V'ha'avodah shemitzad. V'ha'avodah shemitzad haneshama. Now he turns to the second activity known as the Avodah from the perspective of the Neshama. What is this? Hu avana b'hasog elikus. This is to comprehend godly ideas, to really delve into godly thoughts, uvehisoiderus, and to cause an arousal of ava, of love for Hashem, v'yireh, and awe for Hashem. A true arousal of a feeling of love or awe or fear requires a deep understanding. It's not enough just to say, I love God, I fear God. You could say it from today to tomorrow, and it's not the case. You could convince yourself and think it is, but unless you have an understanding, if you say, I love God, you have to know what God is to love Him. And if you say you fear Hashem, you need to know what Hashem is to fear Him. So the first thing is,
there's a song like that. It's actually a Goyish song, but it's a song from the 60s that says, to know Him is to love Him.
Okay, well let's hope it's talking about Hashem and not a woman or a man.
Right.
But anyway, anyway, but the truth is, to love a person, you have to know them. Not in an appropriate context of, if you don't really know a person, be it a spouse, be it a shidduch, be it a child, and you probably know, and those of you who still have young children will probably know as they become older teenagers, sometimes your teenager turns to you and he says, you don't really know me. You think you know me, and they give you that argument. You don't really know me. And as they get older, and they have their own set of their ideas and their agenda and their way of thinking, and if it's different than your way, they tell you very clearly, you don't really know me. And, sometimes it's true. They're your child and they're raised in your home. That was then. What about the last 10 years they've been out in the army, or they've been out in college, or they've been out in yeshiva? And it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. I mean, I remember when I was in yeshiva, 18, 19, 20 years old, I had this feeling in a way. Not in a bad way, but what I was experiencing in my life in yeshiva, my thoughts, as much as I shared with my parents or my father, but it was limited. I was away in yeshiva. So if you're away in yeshiva for 5-6 years, from 17, 18 to 22, 23, that's 5-6 years of your life, and maybe you could say the most important time of your life where you formulate your ideas for life. And it's at that time when you're not around your parents. So do your parents really know you? No. They knew you. They knew you. And this is something that we have to be sensitive to. And again, it can be painful, but a smart parent and good parenting is such that, you listen to the new son. You listen to the new daughter. Hillel, I see that you want to say something. Hillel?
I lost the signal for a bit. I just turned back on.
Okay. Anyway, so I don't know who's making noise. There's very bad noise. Can everyone mute themselves, please? So, let's continue in the Maamar. So what I'm saying is, the Rebbe says here, look what he says, the avodah of mitzad haneshama hu ha'avona b'hasogas elikus. I can't emphasize enough. Havona b'hasogas elikus means deep delving into understanding godliness. When you want to understand a taisvis, when you want to understand a piece of halacha, you can't just read it and say, I know it. It's not true. You don't know it. Maybe you can repeat like a parakeet, but you really don't understand it. Because the proof is when someone will come along who knows it better than you and question and challenge you, you won't have what to answer. So Havana, understanding, requires hasaga, comprehension, thought, and all that. So the Rebbe says, when you come to a Havana of understanding godliness, then you will have a true arousal and feeling of loving Hashem and fearing Hashem. And when that takes place, you ascend in your activity midarga ledarga, from level to level, bi'ilui acher ilui. You climb the ladder, an aliyah. You become more and more connected. At kibo lemadrega hayoser elyoina, until you come to the highest level. And what's that? Shemesatzim im ho'elikus shebasoga. Very, very profound and particular words. Until you become etzem, one, with the godliness, im ho'elokus, the godliness, shebe ha'asoga. What is he saying here, Yaakov? He could have said, shemesatzim im ho'elokus. You study and you understand so much until you become one with the godliness. It doesn't say that. It says until you become one with the godliness within the idea. Number two, my question. Why does it say within the godliness? You're studying a concept of godliness and you become one with the concept. Because you should have said, Shemisatzim im hasaga. But he doesn't say that either. He says two things. Shemisatzim im ha'elokus shebehasaga. What's going on over here? And this is the idea. And this is also very important. This gives us an insight to the difference between Chabad meditation and other systems of meditation within the Jewish world, within the Hasidic world, etc. I'm not talking about other types of meditations which are outside the Jewish realm. Which, interestingly enough, this Friday, a student follower of Rav Shlomo Karlbach called me that he has a transcript of a 1973 talk Shlomo gave at the Swachachani, I can't even pronounce it, Swachachani retreat, June 22nd in 1973 in upstate New York, where they had 400 or 500 students and kids, kids meaning, high school kids, mostly young people, and they were doing a silent meditation using TM. And there was quite a lot of Jewish people there, of course. And one of them approached and asked, who knew Shlomo, and asked if he could come and give them a talk. And the way it worked is and they had guest speakers. The guest speakers were allowed to talk. They were brought to talk. But all the participants had to sit quiet and they couldn't talk. A 10-day retreat. So someone is sending me the 8-page transcript that they made. They transcribed everyone's talk. What Shlomo said, actually he sent it to me already. So, but we're not talking about, because transcendental meditation, TM, if it's done in its pure form, is Avodah Zarah, because it uses a mantra that's Avodah Zarah. Anyway, that's another discussion, and that's why the Rebbe in 1979, actually Yud Beis Tammuz, in a week or so, upcoming in a week, I heard the Sikha. I was in Kansas City as a counselor in a Camp Gan Yisrael, and I remember listening to the talk the Rebbe gave, and he spoke about taking the healthy part of transcendental meditation for those that need it, and he said he wants the professionals, Rabbi Twersky, Dr. Landis of Palo Alto, and others in that field, and today we would probably include Hillel Zeitlin, and really, and it's not too late, Hillel, because they didn't really do it. I interviewed Rabbi Twersky, may he be well, in my book Conversations with the Rebbe, and you could see the transcription of our conversation, and he told me that he had letters, but he said that he didn't do anything about it because he's overwhelmed with work. And between me and you, he's not a Lubavitcher Chassid that he has to follow the Rebbe's words. He had tremendous respect for the Rebbe, but he was a Harner Steipler Chassid. So to drop everything and do what the Rebbe asked of him, he wasn't at that point. And he told me that he hopes one day to do it. And we're still waiting for that one day. But so Hillel, if you want to pick up on that, the Rebbe would give you a big Yasher Koyach, I promise you. Anyway. So what's this idea of Misatzem im Elikus Sheba Hasoga? There is Hasoga, Moshe. There is understanding. I want to understand what I'm learning. I want to really understand what this means. And you question it and out and back and forth and you think about it and all that. That's called Hasoga. Is that the purpose of meditation, of Jewish meditation? In the Chabad ethos, that is not the purpose of the meditation. The purpose of the meditation is to experience the godliness that is behind the meditation, or the godliness within the meditation. So a pure and a good Chabad meditation is that you understand it so well that you kind of leave the realm of understanding and you're overtaken by something outside of the understanding, i.e. the godliness within that concept, and that inspires you. Now, and why is this important? Because if the end all of the meditation is just the understanding as great as it is and as important as it is, has a limitation. And not only does it have a limitation, but it has a place where it's good, a place where it's neutral, and a place where it's no good. And we've seen this throughout the generations, particularly during the Enlightenment movement, the Haskalah movement, where an entire movement was built around Haskalah. What's Haskalah? Havana, understanding. And it came to a conclusion, like I told you in one of the last shiurim, with my wife's grandfather, who had friends, they were all communists, and they gave him the books to read, and he said, it makes a lot of sense, but why must I drop God from the equation? They dropped Hashem from the equation. So here you see Jewish kids, bright minds in the 1910s and 20s, who were studying and educated and smart, and they were frum, and then they dropped their frumkeit because their conclusion with seichel alone is you don't need a God, chas v'sholem. Chasidus teaches us that that's not the ultimate of seichel. That's not the ultimate of meditation. The ultimate is that you're inspired by what lies behind the meditation, by the one who instructs you to meditate. And that comes only when you meditate, when you reflect. So it's a catch-22 situation. On one hand, you have to meditate, you have to think, you have to understand. At the very same time, you have to let go of that understanding and kind of allow yourself to be taken into God's world. Meditation and reflection is our world. Elikus, godliness, is God's world. When you have godliness as the result of a meditation, the meditation is elevated to a place of godliness, and then you will not conclude I want to dump God. No, it's impossible, because you're now in God's domain. Whereas before, you were only in the intellectual domain, or better said, in your own domain. And that is why the Rebbe adds here the words, Shemisatzeim, Im Ho'elikus Shebahasoga. And that's why he calls it Hillel, Yoni, and everyone else. What does he say? He says, you're elevated ad kibol madrege hayoser elyona, until you come to the highest level. Why does he call this yoser elyona, Yoni? Because understanding something is good. Being frum and religious is great. But each doesn't yet come to the ultimate, which is experiencing God from seichel. And that, according to the Alter Rebbe and Chabad Chasidus, is the highest form of worship of God, or the highest form of meditation. Why? Because here you're combining seichel, you're taking something so cold like seichel, and you're transforming it to godliness. Now, what does this mean? What does this mean practically? It means that you're in the osmosis of God, and that sensation at times we have. I'm not walking on the ground. I'm walking in the air. Like something takes over, and you just go along, and it feels right. It's what? I don't hear you. What?
Okay. Talking to someone else.
Oh, turn off the thing, please. So that's the pshat. That's the pshat in the words at kibol madrege hayoser elyona, until you come to the highest level. Shemisatze mimeloikus shebasoga. V'seider ho avoida hu shetchila tzarech li is bittul aguf. Okay, so now we have two things. Avodas haguf and avodas haneshama. What is the order? The order is, first, my friend, you gotta be mavatal your guf. If you got a coarse body and you're like an animal, all of this godly stuff and meditation ain't gonna work. You have to, I don't want to use a Buddhist word, but they use the word, empty out. Lahavdil. You have to empty yourself. Chasidus, they took it from Chasidus as far as Chasidus talks about you have to make yourself rake. A clay rakon. There's a whole concept of Chasidus. Clay rakon, an empty vessel. Mole you could fill up. Clay mole. One second, Hillel. A full vessel? Ain't a mole. You can't fill it up. Yes, Hillel.
This echoes something that Baruch and I have been learning in Perek Tes in the Chasidus Me'ueres on the Tanya, where he talks about that he talks about the war between the Nefesh Elokis and the Nefesh Bahamas, and he says that once the Nefesh Elokis kind of establish its rulership, then it seeks to develop rulership, I'll call Aver Ve'aver, on every limb of the body, to create a kind of unity between the nefesh and the body. So l'chora, that's what he means by bittul haguf.
Yes, okay, yes, but in this context, but in this context, he's referring back to what he calls avodas haguf, which is what he said earlier. So let's get to his question. So you're right in what you're saying. Let's see how it applies here. So he says, the first thing has to be the bittul, the annulment of the guf, of the physical, corporeal wants. And only afterwards will there be his galus oava, will the revelation of love for God be true. Okay? And he doesn't explain much about this because he assumes we understand that what we've been saying all along. You want to feel God, get rid of your chumrius. You can't have your chumri, you can't have your cake and eat it too. It don't work. It just doesn't work. It never has, it doesn't, and it never will. So, if you want to have his galus ava, you want godly love to inspire you. Yes, Moshe?
Rabbi Dalfin, can I just ask you a favor? Can you give us I'm sorry to ask you this, can you give us a practical example, difference between Gashmius and Chumrius? I know we spoke about this a little bit at the end of this year, but I'm still having a little bit of I need an example or two.
Okay, but the example that I like giving, you don't like. Let's try another example. Yesterday I used another example, exercising. I gave the example. You remember the example that someone exercises. So there is exercising lishma. Literally, if you want to be healthy, and you need your blood pressure to go down, and you need to stay thinner, and everything else, and it's healthy for your cardiovascular system. And then there is indulging in exercising where it takes you over, and you do it before davening, in the middle of davening, after davening, and you're crazed about it. So the craze about any type of gashmias is the indulgence part, is the chumrius part. So the first example I gave last week was about the gravy on top of the steak. You can eat a steak without gravy. Why must you have gravy? Because you want it to be double geschmack. Not only is it in gashmias, but you need it to be the Thanksgiving the turkey with the what's it called, the cranberry sauce. Why do you use the cranberries? Why don't you use blueberry sauce? It's disgusting. That you're not just eating a piece of turkey l'shem Thanksgiving. You're eating the turkey because you're salvaging in the taste. The salvaging the taste is the chumrius. The salvaging of the exercise to the point where it overtakes you and leads your life is chumrius, and this chumrius means the coarseness and grobkeit, in the sense where you take what's neutral and gashmi, and you make of it an ikar. You make of it the primary mode of your lifeline and existence, and that is called chumrius. Gashmius is the physical world and all of its things, and you see, when Mashiach will come, in the psukim in Tanakh. I'll give you one pasuk, and I think Yeshaya. Even mikir tizakena. The stone from the wall will shout. What will it shout? Moshe, what will it shout? It will shout, I see that you're stepping on me. You're walking on me, on the pebbles and stones in the old city, going to the kosel. You're stepping on me. What right did you have to step on me? Why are you better than me? Ever mekir tizakena. And what's the answer? The answer is that if I learn and think Torah, or help a yid while I'm walking down, or have godly, holy thoughts as I walk down the steps, the stone says, please step on me. Why? Because I'm about God. God created me. And God put me in this place on the floor to help people walk. So just as Hashem intended for me, the stone, to be an asset to His plan, so you, human beings, stepping on me, do the same thing. And if not, you have no right stepping on me. And in Hayom Yom, remember it says about this pasuk, the stone screams, Bulach. Bulach means you boor. It says to the person, Bulach, you boor. What right do you have to step on me? So, the stone is a gashmi. But when we don't utilize the stone properly, then we're making of the stone just something to make us more comfortable. And Chabad and Chasidus Chabad and in the Musar Svarim, they talk about this with their own verbiage. And in Chabad we use the word chumrius or chomer, you know. So those are examples, and I think you could find more examples in your life, you know. I don't want to go into more examples, but you could find many more examples. There's doing a mitzvah using gashmias, and then there's even doing a mitzvah. When you do a mitzvah and you use gashmias, and we're taught by the Baal Shem Tov, the whole purpose is to use the gashmias, yes? Ask yourself a question. Am I using the gashmias because l'shma? Or I'm using the gashmias because I also like it. I want to indulge in it. That aspect of indulging in it, that indulgent aspect, is the chumrius. And that we need to remove. Let's go back to the Maamar. In Cain, so his question is, HaHalilah Maamar, he should have said, next page 362, Azamra lelekai bioidit chila, David HaMelech should express to himself, first, I sing to Hashem with all my might, with my body, which is the avodas haguf, v'yachakach, and only afterwards, HaHalilah Hashem b'chaya, I'll praise Hashem with my life, which is the service of the soul, of the neshama. Why does he preface the avodah of the soul, yoni? Li'oidi, to the word oid, to the idea of oidi, shu avodas the guf. That's his question. According to the interpretation brought in Chasidus, the previous Rebbe asks a very, very strong question. That David HaMelech should have first said, I sing to Hashem with my guf, and only after I succeed in that service, in that avodah, do I also serve Hashem with my neshama. Because you have to begin with refining your guf. I point out to you that this is a very similar concept to what says in Musar Svarim. But the language in Chasidus Bechlal, not just in Chabad, but in all Chasidus, is a non-Musar language. It's more of a neshama language. But the concept really here is the same. In other words, what does Musar say? Stur meirav asei tov. refrain from bad and do good. But Musar spends a lot of time on talking about the ra, the bad, that one brings on themselves when indulging in the bad. And Musar, emphasizes the punishments for that and all of that. Whereas Chasidus, the Baal Shem Tov's mahalach is to shine the light. To shine the light. But the shining of the light, this is a mistake people make, the shining of light is meant to get rid of the bad. So it's not like, Hasidim, they don't care about Lashon Hara, they don't care about Averas, all they care about is just doing good, And this is a mistake. This is not true. This is not at all what the Baal Shem Tov had in mind. The Baal Shem Tov had in mind basic Yiddishkeit. Okay, let's go on. The idea is the Peirush HaKosov, who the meaning in this verse in chapter 146 in Tilim, Shetachlis HaKavono hu HaHalilah Hashem b'chayai. The reason why Yoni David HaMelech starts with I will praise God with my soul, with my life, is because that's the ultimate place that one should be. And to reach this, it's through I will sing to God with all my might. So in other words, Yoni, David HaMelech wants to make it clear, this is the objective. The fact that we have to remove the ugly part from our character and being and the chumriyas, 100%. But that's not the objective. Don't get stuck there. Don't get stuck there. The ultimate is to experience the godliness, the ava, and continuing. Dehine HaHalilah Hashem b'chayai azam l'lekai b'yoidi heim shnei efani avodah. There are two modes of service. Avodah diskafya. This is known as the service of itkafya, of subjugation. And number two, va'avodah dishapcha, and the service known as hithapcha, which is transformation. And he explains, I will sing to Hashem with all my might. Hiyu avodah diskafya. This is the avodah of subjugation. Tchilas, how? The Kabbalah soil, accepting what Hashem wants, accepting the yoke. And afterwards, when you practice enough control, it becomes, the practice, the hergel, becomes your nature, to subjugate your body. Look at the next word, Moshe, hachumriyus. Right? It doesn't say to practice this and to train your body to subjugate, that you shouldn't be drawn after Gashmias. Doesn't say that, because Gashmias is wanted. It's the Chumrias that we have a problem with. And therefore, in all matters of Gashmias, wow, do we have a long way to go. We should only have what's necessary. Why must you have soda with color? Why can't you drink seltzer? Why can't you drink water? Why? The answer is, it tastes better. That's the truth. Am I wrong? Unless someone can prove that the doctor told him that you must have ginger ale when you have an upset, when you have a certain feeling and you're not well, certain times you need ginger ale, and then it's warranted. But otherwise, why do you want Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Diet Coke, Cherry Coke, Apple Coke, or whatever? And the same matter with vodka. Someone says l'chaim. No, he needs to have cherry l'chaim. He needs to have lemon l'chaim. Why? Because he wants the added flavor. The added flavor is the chumriyas. Mukhrach loy. What's necessary? This is the emes. I mean, I can only talk for myself. We're very far from this. But in yeshiva, when we were in yeshiva, this was something that we worked on in Lubavitch. I think I've told you, and I'm not bragging, I'm not saying this just to show off. You know, when I was in yeshiva, 18, 19, 20 years old, I didn't taste potato chips, I didn't taste chocolate, I didn't taste ice cream, because those things were things that I really wanted, but they were the chumriyas. So I fought with myself, sometimes succeeding, sometimes not. So there is this idea of iskafia, to subjugate and hold yourself back and only use what is necessary for existence.
Rabbi,
yes.
Is that the reason why at Farbrengens they're mostly, you don't see too much whiskey, it's mostly vodka? Is that the reason? Because it's like a cheaper spirit?
No. That's because I think in Russia that's what they had, vodka. That's what they had in Russia and Hasidim. By the way, I since you mentioned that, just say one short thing. Don't think that the Lubavitch Hasidim are the only ones to say l'chaim. There's an account from a Chassid, Rapinya Goldenstein, who lived in the mid-1800s, going into the 1900s, and he came to Petach Tikva, and he's buried over there, and he identified with Lubavitch Hasidim. So he tells over the story that one Yom Tov, Shvi Shal Pesach, on his travels, he stopped in Tolna, or he stopped in somewhere where there were Tolna Hasidim, and he said they were drinking so much that the guy went over to the Amud in the morning after being up all night, and he was shikker, and he wanted to do Birchas Kayanim. So Pinya Goldenstein told him, "You're not allowed to, you're a shikker." And he said, "I'll break your bones. I'll beat you up. Get away from me." So Pinya said to him, "You're going to beat me up? I'm going to the Tolna Rebbe and telling him right now what you're doing." And he went away from the Amud. So all I'm saying, it left an impression on me, because, growing up, I thought, the Lubavitch Chassidim, because of all of the pressures and everything else, if I'm bringing, they were saying l'chaim, a lot of l'chaim and all that. You should know, it was a thing in Russian Chassidim. Before the war, it wasn't just Lubavitch, it was Karliner Chassidim, Tolna Chassidim, the Chernobler dynasty, they plenty said l'chaim. And because vodka was a drink of the, and also, the difficulties, they sometimes needed it just to survive. The Chassid Rabbi Avram Mayor Drizin was running for his life in the 1920s and 30s, fighting for the previous Rebbe in the underground, and there were times that he said that he had to take a lot of vodka to be able to do the mission. You imagine going into the enemy territory? Yes, Hillel.
Just want to make the point that a reason why many of the drinks in Europe were alcoholic was because many water sources from many areas were polluted. You couldn't drink water in many areas.
Oh, very.
So it became a necessary to have alternatives to potable water.
Thank you. I never heard of that. That's the first time, and that's a historical fact. What you're saying, yes?
Yes, yeah.
You hear, Yoni? You heard what Hillel said? Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's. Yeah.
I was wondering why every time I get into a cab, they're drinking vodka. Noma.
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue.
You see, Rabbi Dalfin,
yes.
You see though amongst other Chassidim, like for example, let's say like Polish Chassidim, they don't doesn't seem like that's like a big thing by them.
No, but again, the Polish and Galician Chassidim, I don't think were drinking. I mean, it was I don't know. To me, I don't know if Hillel's fact applies to all of Europe, but in Russia, vodka became kind of the Coca-Cola. It became like a common drink. So it was a Russian Chassidim thing. Russian, and listen, today, I don't think, most Hasidim, even Russian Hasidim really, say lots of l'chaim. The Tolna, the Chernobler, I'm in shul with the Chernobler for 20 years, and they give a little grape juice when they give tikkun, and I say to them, I mean, we're not talking about drinking now, we're talking about saying l'chaim for neshama, give a little real l'chaim, but they just give grape juice, and Rabbi Twersky would be very happy, because he's very anti-alcohol, and I understand where he's coming from. But let's go back to the text.
I'll just say by the Talmud Rebbe today, there's not much alcohol.
There is not, right?
Yeah, the Malva Malkos and like that. I have not seen much.
Yeah, no.
They make l'chaims over, like sweet brandy is probably the most, the hardest liquor I've seen.
Yeah.
Mostly wine.
I have a hunch, Hillel, I can't prove it, that why it stayed with Lubavitch and came into America and Eretz Yisrael, whatever, post-war is because the Lubavitch Chassidim were leading an underground. Most others left, let's face it. And Lubavitch was there for a very long time till the World War II. So kind of you still and some of these people came to America and to Eretz Yisrael. So the Russian Hasidim and Kfar Chabad and in America, so they still were like this Rabbi Avraham Mayer, who I knew was a mashpia of mine, and he lived till 90 years old, and he was someone who was leading mamish the underground in Russia, and he would always say, if you don't allow yourself to be shechted, in other words, you're not really a chassid. Now you imagine, and sometimes he would have to say l'chaim to allow himself to be shechted because he has to do a mission. He has to open a Talmud Torah, he has to teach children, he has to raise money, and the enemy and Stalin are looking to kill him, and right? So he comes into Eretz Yisrael in 1949. He comes to America in 1956 to 58, and he's still under that culture. So that is why I believe that it continued in Lubavitch, whereas it did not continue in the other circles. So the Tolna Hasidim, the Chernobler, they because really there wasn't an active, strong, larger group of Tolna Hasidim or Chernobyl Hasidim in America. It's only let's say you talk about Skver, right? It was only the Skver Rebbe, the first one, who survived, and he rebuilt, and it started in the 60s and 70s. So there was a long period where it and even Breslov, in Russia, Breslov had a strong prominence and group. But there too, how many real Breslov Hasidim came to America, came to Eretz Yisrael? A few. It wasn't so organized. Chabad, this is a fact. Chabad, because they had in America a very active group in the 20s, from 26 and on, who were doing already Chabad activities in the yeshivas, in Chaim Berlin, in Torah V'das, in the community. And so they continued that tradition, and they embraced those Russians that came over. And by the way, just for the record, there was a chassid in Tel Aviv who was a very big chassid, a shaykhit. His name was Abzalma Moshe. Everyone knows in Chabad about him. And he was a very, very sharp chassid. Reb Mendel Futterfass considered him like his mashpia, although he wasn't a mashpia in yeshiva, but he was a Hasidic Jew and a fiery Jew. And he could take a good drink. He was from a city called Nevel. Nevel in Russia, in Ukraine. Nevel is they were simple katsavim, butchers. And the Rabbeim would say, I'd rather have a simple butcher from Nevel than a maskil, than an intellect from Kremenchuk. Kremenchuk were very big minds. Wealthy Chassidim, wealthy people, and big intellectuals. So the Rabbeim said, I'd rather have a Nevler Katzev than a Kremenchuker Maskil. That's the expression. Right? So this Alma Moshe was from Nevel. And he was also happened to be a big maskil. He understood well Chasidus, and he was a Chasidus Yid. And when he would fabreng, he took quite a bit of mashke, and he opened his mouth, and sometimes you couldn't sit there. You couldn't sit with him because he lambasted you. And he used language that we wouldn't normally use. And he was talking to his Nefesh Abamis. He was trying to slaughter his own Nefesh Abamis, who was like a behemoth. And imagine, he was this big chassid, but for him, he still felt he has a behemoth in him. He came to Eretz Yisrael. He came in 35, and he's farbringing, and everyone respects him. Everyone wants to hear, and everyone jump. Reb Zalman Moshe, wow, we have a privilege of having him in Tel Aviv. And he continues taking the mashke, and he continues opening his mouth, and people are, it's like, So on one hand, you wanted to come to listen to him because he had pearls of wisdom. And you saw that this man is living with a higher reality. At the same time, if he feels that you're, not 100% or whatever, he gives it into you. He lets you have it. It's a farbrengen. A farbrengen wasn't, oh, you're a great guy. You're the best. It's not today's therapy. Sorry, Hillel. It was about really getting under your skin. Really getting under your skin. Yes, Hillel.
Was that part of the tradition of farbrengen? Kind of like emotional critique.
Yes. The answer,
the encounter group kind of a thing.
The answer by Hasidim, yes, but the previous Rebbe already said that the times have changed during his time, and he would say, and it's in Hayom Yom. You'll see it in Hayom. He says you have to farbrengen without negel, without nails, without steching. So it seems like that was the culture at a good Lubavitcher Hasidic farbrengen. You were coming and you had to be ready to hear it all. I remember even in my days in Morristown in the yeshiva, you're talking about 1980, 81, Thursday nights after learning till 1, 2 in the morning, we would go down underground. It was called the tunnels. That's where you had all the, the piping and for the facility, for the whole facility. And we had groups, and in this group, we let each other have it, we let each other have it, and frankly, for me, it was like the best thing, because here I am, a star student, and I'm pompous, in my own way. And we came Thursday night to the farbrengen, your friend let you have it, showing you that you're a piece of garbage. Why? Because take off your thing. I hear the mowing of the grass. So at the farbrengen, that's when you got a chance to humble yourself, or at least to hear it. But in our days, it was still curtailed. But by Reb Zalman Moshe, who was an authentic Russian and who was born in the 1870s, I think, he came from a different planet. And he didn't, accept the 1930s and 40s of Eretz Yisrael, okay? So he comes to the farbrengen and he lambasts the Hasidim. You're not talking about lambasting Litvaks or Sfardim, to his own brothers and sisters. He's talking about his own friends. And if he felt that they're being false, this was a big issue of discussion, he let them have it. They wrote to the previous Rebbe. They wrote to our author, the Rebbe. And they said, we can't anymore. And sometimes it's vulgar. Again, he had a certain way of speaking. And the Rebbe wrote him, I heard this from someone whose father-in-law was a gabbai by the previous Rebbe in the 40s. And he told me the story. He wrote to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe wrote him back, you have to stop. People are not a vessel to hear that type of farbrengen in the 1935 and on, and 40s in Tel Aviv. That's it. It doesn't work anymore. And you have to calm down. And you know what? Wait, Hillel. And he did. And this shows you what kind of real chassid it was, because he preceded the previous Rebbe. You have to understand, he was born before him. And he came from a different period. And nevertheless, the Rebbe said he went cold turkey, just like a smoker who somehow, a tzaddik, a Rebbe, or a doctor tells him, stop smoking, it's dangerous. And he drops the cigarettes the next day or the same day, and that's it. So, is there an inyan, as you ask, Hillel, about this in the Chabad ethos of... The answer is yes. But today it has to be done in a very measured way. I mean, I'm going to let you talk, but I have friends. We all have friends. And sometimes I want to say something, and I say, I can't say it. Because I just know this person, he's not able to hear it. And all it will do is create a barrier between us, and it won't have any positive result. So why say it? Yes, Hilla, you wanted to say something.
I wanted to make the point that, it seems to me that when I was coming up as a therapist, there was the concept of groups like that are called encounter groups that were similar. Similar, it sounds like, in practice, where people would sort of tear each other down and attack each other's defenses, and they ended up really falling out of favor and being widely disparaged in psychology. And they're not practiced at all today. There's none, to my knowledge. And it occurs to me as well that in the development of communism, there was this fundamental idea of re-education, which sounds similar, a similar kind of confrontation. Where that people were sort of broken down to build them up. It became the basis for brainwashing in communist societies and so on. And it occurs to me as you're saying this that this kind of a practice, I can't think of an arena in which it's used today in either a religious or a secular context. It really seems to be something that has kind of the world has moved away from, at least our world, the Western world. Absolutely. That's an interesting point.
And absolutely. Absolutely. And I think when you speak, I was thinking, even in, let's say, Slobodka, the Litvish yeshiva, in Slobodka, in Russia, in Lita, one of the tactics used there by the leader of Nosson Tzvi Finkel, and was to, in a way, break down the student and make the student feel that he needs you. So you would first distance him, and for the purpose of bringing him closer. And it was an approach. Today, this don't work, and it's not used. But nevertheless, when I remember in the 80s when Reb Mendel Futterfass came to Los Angeles to raise funds together with Rabbi Reichik for some institutions in Eretz Yisrael. So, I would speak to him before I became part of his family. And he said to me one time, he said to me, America is bluff. America is bluff and fake. So I said, Reb Mendel, what do you mean? He said it like I remember it was Shabbos at like 2 o'clock. And he just had finished davening, and I went over to him to say good Shabbos, and he made like as though he was meditating about this under his talus, And he said, in America, he said it in his broken Russian Yiddish. He said it not broken. He said in America, he said in English, he said the bluff is you tell someone and prove, they tell you it's not your business. And he said, I can't stand that. He said, we were trained in Russia, everything is our business. One chassid to another? What are you kidding? And actually, he spent a lot of time later when I married, and he came to me in 1988 in Marin County, and he stayed in my house overnight. He spent hours teaching me this and scolding. He was giving me mussar. He asked me, what are you doing now for this program? And I told him. And then he said, wait. And then he criticized, and he said, no, do it this way. Because he felt I'm receptive. And I was receptive. So, and by the way, his teacher was the Zalman Moshe. I told you, his mashpia. So he had this element in him. But I'll never forget. The bluff of America, he said, is it's not your business. So it is a fading art today. I agree with you, and that's it. I want to end with this because we have to go. But my own recollection and my own story in 1984, when I came to Marin County, July of '84, that summer, one of my balabatim, who became a Baal Tshuva, had a kiddush, I think, for a child. And at that kiddush, there was someone there who made a pledge to the people who brought me to support the work. And he was fumphing, he was playing around. And they told me about it. We can't get the funds from him, and it's not right. And I'm the new kid on the block. And then I got to know him. I could see that he was playing around. So at this kiddush, I'm coming, you understand, from Crown Heights. I took a little l'chaim, so I was a little tipsy, and I let him have it at the kiddush. And I said, "Why are you doing this to them? You made a pledge. If you don't have the funds, say you don't have it." But I got a little upset with him, and guess what I did? I threw a shoe at him. And it was taken in the right way, but later I heard from them, you should have not done that. It was too much. And what I realized is that they're not a vessel at a Hasidic Farbrengen where sometimes you could throw a shoe at someone, not throwing, you want to kill him, you hurt him. Just the idea like you're a jerk. They're not a vessel for that. They weren't at that time. And I didn't assess them well, or maybe because I was tipsy, I didn't think about it, and I just was expressing the way I feel, which is not the right way, because you have to take into consideration who you're talking to and what you're doing at what situation. So, and there's been a change. I absolutely agree with you. In Russia, and even in my days in yeshiva, if you got a shoe thrown at you by your teacher, you were a happy camper. That he cares so much about you that he throws a shoe at you. That was the culture that we grew up in. In other words, there's a relationship there. And therefore he tells you off. And he gives you musr. And he gives you criticism. Because he loves you. But that's changed. That's changed. And today, it's a different situation. Okay. Chevra, we'll have to continue tomorrow because we get sidetracked, but it's important because there's a good interactive discussion. So it's important. Have a great day, everyone. Sei gesund. Bye-bye.
Did he pay, Rabbi?
Yes.
Did he pay up? Did he pay the pledge? Rabbi?
Not entirely. Anyway, shalom.
Kultiv.
Bye-bye.